Level 1. The Seaman Recruit. You volunteered for this. Nobody puts you on a submarine. You sign a piece of paper that says you want to be there, which makes everything that happens next entirely your fault. You report to Naval Submarine School in Groton, Connecticut. Groton in any season is gray. In January, it's gray and cold, and the wind off the Thames River has something personal against you. The base smells like diesel and the kind of institutional cleaning product that never quite gets anything clean. Submarine school is 6 months. They teach you the physics of buoyancy, the mechanics of a pressure hull, the theory of a nuclear reactor, and the procedure for escaping a sunk submarine through a flooded escape trunk. That last one isn't theoretical. They put you in a pressurized tank and tell you to breathe out slowly as you rise. Your ears pop. Your chest tightens. Every instinct you have says, go back, choose something else. That moment is called the 50-foot tank. You survive it, or you ask to be reassigned. About 8% of the class asks. Your instructor tells you the thing that will define your career in one sentence. A submarine is a controlled emergency. The sea is trying to kill you. The machinery is keeping it from doing that. Your job is to maintain the machinery. Level 2. The nub stands for non-useful body. That is what they call you, not a nickname, not hazing. The official designation for an unqualified crew member on a United States submarine. You are, in the precise technical language of the submarine community, a non-useful body. You report to your first boat, a fast attack, an SSN. You walk down the pier, and it's longer than a football field, and sits so low in the water, the ocean is 3 feet from the deck. You go aboard. You find your rack. It is 22 inches wide. There is a torpedo above it. The boat smells like nothing you've encountered. Hydraulic fluid, diesel exhaust, and the specific biological odor of 130 men sharing recycled air in a sealed metal tube. The smell fades after 72 hours. Your nose stops registering it. This is either adaptation or surrender, and you decide it doesn't matter. You are a newbie. You carry coffee to people who are qualified. You update the qualification card, 8 pages listing every system on the submarine, nuclear plants, torpedoes, ballast tanks, damage control, everything. Sailors who've been aboard for 8 years will quiz you and send you back to learn more. Some are generous. Some make you earn every signature like they're paying for it themselves. Both kinds are right. The night you earn your dolphins, they pin them to your chest. The backing is removed so the points are exposed. They drive it in with a palm. You don't make a sound. You are part of the crew now. Level 3. The Petty Officer. 3rd class. Your first deployment is 77 days. You write 77 on a piece of tape above your rack and change the number every morning. By day 30, you can't remember what sunlight felt like. By day 50, you've stopped trying. There is no day or night on a submarine. There are watch rotations. 6 hours on, 12 hours off, another 6. The lights stay the same artificial white regardless of what time it is on the surface. Your body tries to find a rhythm and gives up around day 5. You go deep. 200 feet. 300. The hull groans, metal contracting against water pressure. Every new crew member goes through a period of believing the hull is failing. It isn't. Probably. The experienced sailors don't look up when they hear it. You learn not to. It takes longer than you'd like. There is no phone. Messages go out in compressed burst transmissions when conditions allow. Sometimes every few days. Sometimes not for 2 weeks. Your family writes letters that arrive in batches. You read them in the wrong order. By day 77, you surface. The hatch opens and cold air falls down from above, and you climb the ladder and stand on the bridge, and the sky is just there. All of it. Every direction. No wall, no ceiling, just open sky. You stand there and don't move because you didn't realize how much you'd been missing it until it came back. You go back down for the next deployment. You already know this. You stand there anyway. Level 4. The Petty Officer Second Class 5 years in. Second deployment, maybe third. The submarine doesn't scare you the same way. It's still capable of killing you. The fear doesn't go away. It relocates to a more manageable address. Your specialty is sonar. Sonar means you listen. You wear headphones, and you learn to hear things that have no names. Biologics, the technical term for marine life. Whale song that sounds nothing like you imagined. The low grinding thrum of commercial shipping running thousands of feet above you. The distant mechanical signature of another submarine that you are not supposed to know is there, and that you report anyway because that's your job. Once, on your second deployment, you hear something that takes 30 minutes to classify. Nothing in the library matches exactly. You call your supervisor in. He listens 45 seconds and says, "Biologics." You never find out if he was right. Your hearing has started going. Just the high range. The audiologist flagged it at the last physical. You are 26 years old with the hearing profile of someone 15 years older. The VA will assign a rating eventually. For now, you file the note and go back to work. You missed your daughter's first steps. Your wife sent a video in a message burst. You watched it in the sonar room at 0300 on a Tuesday that could have been any day. 6 steps and then a fall and a laugh. You watched it 4 times. Then you put the headphones back on. Your wife says she's handling it. That means she's doing it alone. You understand this. You don't know what to do with that understanding at depth, so you listen to the ocean. Level 5. The Chief. They call you Chief, not by your name. Chief. The rank becomes the name and it never changes. The Chief's mess is the most important compartment on a submarine. Not the control room, not the reactor. The Chief's mess, barely large enough for the 10 chiefs who inhabit it, is where the boat actually runs. Officers command the submarine. Chiefs operate it. These are 2 different things, and the difference matters in every direction. You've been deployed 11 times. 11 deployments means roughly 3 years of your life spent submerged, running silent, breathing recycled air. 3 years of a specific kind of absence that doesn't translate to people who haven't done it. Your hearing aids are good ones. You paid for them yourself because the VA situation is complicated. You wear them at home and take them out at work because the machinery noise would overwhelm them anyway. Your wife knows. Your sailors don't. Your younger kid, before every deployment, stopped asking when you were leaving and started asking how long. Not when. How long? She learned to ask the question that gives useful information. You taught her that without meaning to. It is one of the things you are most proud of. It took you a long time to feel that way about it. Level 6. The Junior Officer. You went to nuclear power school in Goose Creek, South Carolina. 6 months. The most academically demanding program in the military by most measures. Nuclear physics, thermodynamics, reactor plant systems. 30 hours of study per week minimum. Then prototype. 6 months operating a real naval reactor on land with real consequences. You arrive on your first submarine with a nuclear engineering background and the social awareness of someone who hasn't slept properly in 18 months. You are a division officer, responsible for 20 sailors and a department's worth of equipment. You know more about reactor theory than anyone in your division and less about how the boat actually works than its most junior petty officer. The chief corrects you in front of your sailors. He is right every time without exception. The good ensigns learn this in the first month. The bad ones take longer. The ones who never learn it become the cautionary stories chiefs tell for years after. You qualify as officer of the deck. When you have the con on a nuclear submarine at depth, you are responsible for the safe navigation and operation of that vessel. 130 people, $2.4 billion, whatever the mission requires. The first time you have the con alone and you make the right call and the captain says good and moves on, you allow yourself 4 seconds of private satisfaction. Then something else requires attention. Level 7. The Executive Officer. You are the most disliked person on the boat. This is the most important thing about the job. The CO leads. You enforce. Every personnel issue flows to you. Every disciplinary matter is yours. You manage the schedule, track the readiness, run captain's mast, answer every problem the CO doesn't answer, which is most of everything. 120 sailors know you primarily as the person who said no. You are fine with this. You are not there to be liked. You are there to make the boat ready, so that when the CO needs to command it, it can be commanded. You've been away from home for stretches that add up to numbers you've stopped calculating. Your kids are 13 and 10. Your 13-year-old calls you by your first name, not out of disrespect, out of distance. When a parent disappears and reappears and disappears across years, a name can lose its weight. You were told this happens. Being told it happens and having it happen are different experiences. You spend 30 minutes alone before you can speak normally again the first time it does. You know you're being screened for command. The conversations are indirect, the way those conversations always are. You know your timeline. You've been building toward this your entire career. You are almost there. The weight of almost is its own specific thing to carry at depth at 0300 when the boat is quiet. Level 8. The Commanding Officer. They call you Captain, not Commander, which is your actual rank. Captain. The boat gives you that name the moment the telescope passes from the previous CO's hands to yours. One ceremony, one object, the boat is yours. You command a fast attack submarine, 134 sailors, a nuclear reactor, a weapons loadout whose specifics belong to compartments with different classification requirements. You know what's in the torpedo room. You know where you're going. Your crew, for the most part, does not. Submerged under certain operational conditions with communications blackout engaged, you are the decision maker, and there is no one above you to call. You were trained for this for 20 years. The training does not make it smaller than what it is. You have days at depth where nothing happens. The mission is presence. You are somewhere, running quiet, and being there is the entire point even when nothing occurs. 134 people. No sunlight. The same recycled air. Each other. In crisis, they have something to do. In nothing, they have only their minds and whatever you can give them for morale, which is never quite enough on day 60. The last deployment of your command tour is 72 days. You surface. You bring the boat in. The families are on the pier. You watch from the bridge for a moment before you climb down. You go home. Your wife is at the door. The boat is behind you, tied to the pier. For a moment, there is nothing else. 2 days later, you're already thinking about the next assignment. You can't turn it off. You stopped trying a long time ago. Somewhere right now, a kid is sitting in a Navy recruiter's office. 17, maybe 18. There's a brochure on the table with photographs of submarines surfacing from dark water. The recruiter is talking about elite training and special duty pay and the chance to do something most people never will. The kid has already decided. He wants to be talked into it so it feels like more than one person's choice. He'll go to Groton. He'll breathe out slowly in a pressurized tank while every instinct tells him go back. He'll write 77 on a piece of tape above a rack with a torpedo over it. He'll earn a pair of dolphins pressed hard into his chest by someone who was once exactly where he is. He will never fully explain any of it to someone who wasn't there. He will try anyway. He'll figure out the rest. They always do. The cycle continues.